Hello, and thank you for your interest in our group. My name is Emilio Hernandez Pagan. I am a new professor of inorganic chemistry at UD, and my group largely focuses on inorganic nanomaterials. And so we're going to share with you a little bit of the kind of broad aspects of the projects within the group. And with me, I have two graduate students. They're going to talk you through some of what they're working on. And so let's start with our first grad student.
Hi everyone, my name is Danielle, and I'm a first year grad student in the HP group. One of the broad aims of our group is to gain a mechanistic understanding of nanocrystal synthesis through the use of some in situ techniques. So nanocrystals exhibit unique properties due to their size. When you get down to the nanoscale, you can get some unique properties and things going on. And they're useful in a wide variety of applications. So it's really not a shock or a surprise that the synthesis of nanocrystals has increased and advanced quite a bit over the past several decades. And those top four images there in the first column, you can see a few different images, TEM images of nanocrystals that we've pulled from the literature. And what you can see here is that there's many different types of materials that are accessible in the nanoscale, and that we can also tune the synthesis to obtain different shape nanoparticles. So from left to right, we have spheres, cubes, rods, and octopods, and those are just a few of the possible shape nanoparticles that we can get. So the advancement, like I had mentioned, while there's been quite a bit of it, it's been primarily empirical. There's really little understanding of the mechanisms that are driving these synthesis reactions. As you can see in that next image there, that's sort of just displaying the current method of nanoparticle synthesis bypasses the understanding of the mechanisms. And our group wants to fill that gap in knowledge in the field and begin to uncover the mechanisms responsible for nanocrystal synthesis. And we'll do this by using a variety of in situ techniques like X-ray spectroscopy, gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, as well as a variety of other techniques to provide a comprehensive mechanistic picture of nanocrystal synthesis. So sort of looking at the big picture, we'll be synthesizing nanocrystals and then using these in situ studies to develop a mechanistic picture of the synthesis, and which in turn can be used to develop new materials or potentially break into some new applications. And with a deeper understanding and insight into the mechanisms, we will be able to establish reaction design principles to hopefully advance the field toward a more rational synthesis of some novel materials for a variety of different uses. Additionally, these design principles will enable us to extend nanocrystal synthesis toward polar systems. So the current technique or thought that's used for using nanoparticles in polar systems, such as biological applications, is to make the nanoparticles the typical way you would in a non-polar system, where you end up with these long chain greasy ligands, and then you would do some sort of ligand exchange to swap that out with a polar ligand. There's a couple issues with this. It's not super effective. It doesn't always work. So we would be looking to expand our ligand portfolio and use the things we discover to synthesize some new ligands for use in polar systems. So the project I'm currently working on in this vein of gaining a mechanistic understanding of nanocrystal synthesis involves manganese sulfide nanocrystals. And they're particularly interesting because there's three different distinct crystal lattice structures you can see with manganese sulfide. So we want to explore how mixing different manganese salt precursors will affect the morphology as well as the crystal lattice structure of the resulting nanocrystals. And our plan is to use variable temperature NMR study to look at the precursors when we mix them, and then as the reaction is heated up to reaction temperature.
All right, thank you, Danielle.
All right, hello, my name is Hannah. I'm also a first year graduate student in the HP lab. Second aim of our group is to investigate the fundamental driving forces behind nanoscale cation exchange reactions using thin films as a model system. So cation exchange reactions are of great interest in the scientific community as a strategy to transform nanocrystals into novel complex materials. You can see in the first figure here that the wide array of structures that are possible with utilization of cation exchange. In a cation exchange reaction, the anion sublattice is typically retained. And if you take a look at the figure on the left of the copper sulfide, post-synthetically, the cations were swapped while the yellow anions remained unchanged. This allows for the formation of non-equilibrium crystallographic phases, which in turn presents access to structures that would be challenging to synthesize directly. Additionally, cation exchange reactions allow us to access diverse morphology portfolios, retain the size and shape of the nanocrystal, and can be reversible. So the complex and novel nanostructures possible under mild conditions using this post-synthetic method have been of growing interest in the literature. However, little work has been done to study the fundamental driving forces and mechanisms involved. Our aim is to utilize the thin film model system to gain a quantitative understanding of the thermodynamics and kinetics that underpin cation exchange reactions at the nanoscale. So we are utilizing thin films as our model system here as a way to systematically control all factors of the transformation. This approach will allow us to interrogate the roles of crystallographic orientation, ligand coverage, and ligand type, which relative to other competing factors have not been fully understood in nanosystems. So if you take a look at the preliminary data shown at the bottom here of cadmium sulfide silver exchange, you can observe a color change from yellow to brown and the subtle addition of a silver peak around 3 keV in the EDS spectrum, both of which are indicative of a cation exchange reaction. So the knowledge gained by this project will aid in establishing synthetic guidelines to facilitate the predictive synthesis of novel structures in which the properties can be tuned for various applications spanning the fields of biology, chemistry, and engineering. So my first research objective is to fabricate zinc sulfide thin films and exchange with various cations, which then I will investigate for the thermodynamics and kinetics of the process.
Thank you, Hannah. And so our last kind of big project area focuses on developing catalytic materials. For this approach, we're trying to propose a different strategy. So normally in heterogeneous catalysis, what people have been doing is they try to optimize a given catalyst based on either adjusting the composition, and that way they tune the interaction between the catalyst and the reactants. And so you can see here, for example, in this plot here where we have the binding of a hydrogen to different metals. You can see that at the top of this kind of triangle here on the right column, that platinum is the best because it kind of has in between binding, so it doesn't bind protons too strong or too weak, and that's the reason why platinum is known as one of the best catalysts for making hydrogen. Next to that figure, you can see this approach of high throughput synthesis, where people can make tons of catalysts and test them simultaneously and map out which ones are the best. And this works really well. The issue is that you're generating a lot of catalysts that are not suitable for the reaction. Only a few of them display this ideal behavior. And furthermore, these catalysts tend to be reaction dependent, right? So a catalyst that might be good for making hydrogen, it's not necessarily good for making CO2 reduction. And so here in this kind of middle image on the catalyst section, you can see the different metals that can produce hydrogen versus CO products versus different other carbon products, right? Like the case of copper, which is very unique. So the question then is, how can we improve the chemical diversity of these catalysts and control the selectivity for a given catalyst. And so what we're proposing to do is to use catalysts that can be stimulated by different ways. In particularly, we're interested on materials that display magnetic properties known as magnetostriction. And so these materials are very unique because when you expose them to a magnetic field, they can expand or contract. And essentially what we're doing when we expose them to these magnetic fields and they expand and contract is we are adjusting their electronic structure. If we can adjust their electronic structure, then we can also adjust how they interact with a given reactant. So our initial targets to explore this, this hypothesis are iron gallium and iron rhodium nanoparticles. These materials are known to display these properties and have been well studied in the bulk, but their synthesis as nanocrystals remains a challenge. So this is an opportunity for us to kind of develop these materials and push the field towards these more synthetically challenged alloys, as well as to test these magnetic properties. Once we have these materials synthesized, then we will use them for hydrogen evolution reaction studies, as well as CO2 reduction. Obviously, these are reactions of great interest for their impact for renewable energy applications. But we can use these materials for other applications or other reactions as well. So yeah, hopefully you got a little flavor of what the group does. You know, happy to answer any questions. You can email me at emilhp@udel.edu. So emilhp@udel.edu. If you have any further questions, you can also email our grad students. You can find more information at our webpage. But yeah, just to summarize, you know, our group really focuses on trying to develop the chemistry to make new nanomaterials and find applications that we can then use these for. So thank you again for your interest, and hopefully we get to meet at some point. Bye.